great way of thinking about social media and how an organization sort of graduates from one tier to the other is to use the static broadcast engagement model. Under the static model, it's essentially you're there. Everyone essentially is there already. Most of our clients, they already have a LinkedIn company page. They're already on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, so that if people are going to check them out, they can see that they exist. This isn't doing anything active. It's just saying, hey, check us out. Just like when people go to a website, it's the same thing. It's the very same thing. Broadcast is a little bit more. It's let's repurpose the things that currently exist that we send out by email, for example, or by paper even, and say, let's send it out on the social channel. Let's tweet about it. Let's blog about it. Let's do YouTubes about it. But it's just a one-way communication. And that doesn't take as much resources, but at least it gets the words out. Level 3 is really engagement, where there's two things happening. Number one, there's a one-to-one relationship that's happening. There's a conversation between you as an organization and your prospects and customers, your job candidates, and any other stakeholders. The second thing that we talk about in engagement is the development of a community of interest. So the people who are part of that community are not just talking to you, but also talking to each other. So going from one to the other obviously is a different level of engagement, but it also speaks to the development of where the baseline capability is. Baseline is static and broadcast for many organizations, and then a campaign is all about engagement to get them to do something. Yes, there is some broadcast and everything. Here's what I'm going to suggest. That this model where baseline is towards the left and campaign is towards the right is the wrong model that you should be thinking about. What we need to do to be truly effective is to extend that baseline capability across all three tiers of activity, so that as part of the DNA of the organization, that there's engagement happening, say in customer service or in recruiting or whatever it happens to be. And that we don't just say, gee, the campaign is the only place where there's engagement, but as part of the communication. It's a multi point communications process. So that's what we talk about when we say three tiers of activity. But the question is, how do you build that baseline capability across the organization? It's actually quite simple. If you take a look at the entire organization, each of the functional areas, each of the silos, and I just have a couple of them that are shown right now, and say, how does each one of these actually use social media to achieve their objectives? Now, marketing and sales is usually where it's driven, but all the other areas are just as important. Let me say why. From an HR perspective, gee, where do you find potential candidates? LinkedIn, for example, 1/3 of the revenue in their business comes from this actual part of the social media space. How do you find the candidates? How do you select them? How do you do reference checks? How do you make sure that your recruiting brand is the way it should be? And once again, when people are inside, and this is the top one, internal collaboration, how do people work together in a social, many-to-many kind of way? If you think about supply chain, and let's take purchasing specifically, well, if marketing and sales is all about social media and connection to the prospective customer, the purchasing folks are the other end of that telephone. So shouldn't they also have a bit of capability as well? What's their process to reach back to their vendors and prospective vendors and partners? So building the capability across the organization is actually pretty important. What's not on the slide that is actually really important is the critical nature of IT and how IT can be a true enabler of this by not blocking access to social websites. People bring more power in their breast pockets into work than there were in complete server rooms just a few years ago. If you block off the access to customers, to prospects, to suppliers, to candidates, to any stakeholder, that means that people inside can't listen and they can't converse. But more importantly, if they're of the nature to fool around and waste time using social media, they'll just take out their Android or iPhone or BlackBerry and they'll do it on their portable machine. So it's not a question of blocking off. It's a question of managing to expectations. Second part of building a baseline capability is training the team on the strategy and risks and how to execute. Now, we're not going to spend much time on this second part, other than to say that it's just because it's there, it doesn't mean that it'll be used or used effectively.